Hey, Wellness Crew. I am so glad that you're here to join me for today. Today, we're going to be talking about things that I've talked about in the past, but kind of how more they relate to each other to help you become that fully actualized person that you would like to be, if you would like to be that. So, the first step is establishing who you want to be. Now, oftentimes this takes on some type of writing exercise, right? So, really trying to flesh out in detail who is this person? What does this person do? How does this person dress? How does this person speak? How does this person carry themselves? What type of energy does this person have? What type of emotions does this person have? And knowing what your blueprint is and in the most minute detail is so incredibly important and so helpful. It's why a lot of people do vision boards. It's why a lot of people will do notebooks or binders because they want a reminder, a visual cue, right, of what they want to be. But what I've found that's worked best for my clients is for them to actually write out in detail all of the things that their future selves that they want to realize, that they want to be. When they write out all of those attributes, all of those things, and you can even include the possessions that you have in the future, there really is no limit. We want a complete idea of who it is exactly that you want to be in order so that way the coach knows how to get you there and what your priorities are, because that's going to speak volumes in who it is that you want to be and what your main drives are and what motivates you and what gets you up in the morning. So, the first thing you're going to have to contend with is ego. Ego often gets a bad rep. You can learn over time and through inner work to make friends with your ego. But yes, ego is usually the sabotager. And that's because what the ego is trying to constantly do is protect you, keep you safe, right? But we still have some of that hunter gatherer brain inside our brain still. And we still are triggered and really disconnected from feelings of being unsafe. So, what we want to do is, or what our ego wants to do, is protect us from all that. Now, it can't differentiate the fact that we're no longer hunter gatherers. We're no longer needing to fight for resources, or at least to the degree that we used to have to. And we have to kind of understand that we need to learn how to feel our intuition and feel ourselves from our body rather than just from our minds, because if we do it just from our minds, what's happening is that's giving the opportunity for the ego to kind of take over. And a good way to look at it, and this was from a podcast that I listened to recently, was about having the ego be in the passenger seat, you be in the driver's seat, and you telling the ego, okay, you're allowed to be here, this is fine, but you're never allowed to take control of the steering wheel. And I just loved that little analogy, because it is something that you definitely want to do, is have that conversation with your ego, like try to communicate with your ego, because that's in your subconscious. And the better you get to know yourself, then the better you know what you need to do to get to where you want to be. So, another thing too is the ability to shift identities. Now, this is something that I've talked about before, but probably not using that terminology. Shifting identities simply means that you have outgrown your current identity. So you're going to shift into a new one. Let's say that you've been doing a lot of inner work. You've been really, finding yourself, and you really feel like, yeah, I'm kind of ready to like level up. So what you're going to do is you're going to shift your identity to fit the person that you want to be. Kind of like taking baby steps to get to that fully actualized, fully realized future self. So there's going to be multiple shifts in identity, right? Where you're going to change, you're going to change the patterns of the things that you're doing. You're going to make different choices, right? Ones that are more in alignment with who it is that you want to be. I myself have found this to be so true. This has happened for me. As soon as I was like, okay, no, this is my goal, and I was sure, that's when things started to change for me. That's when things started to progress for me. That's when I really got through a lot of blocks, a lot of roadblocks for my own healing. And I was able to learn all that, and I was able to use that knowledge and use that experience for my clients and now for you. So shifting identities is a good thing. It's good to be changing into that person that you want to become. And also understanding that you are going to be losing and leaving behind pieces of yourself. Because in order for there to be room, for there to be this change, there has to be a shedding of things. And that's where, the habits and the routines and things like that come into play and actually become incredibly exciting. So using the word routine is almost like giving it a disservice because you truly just feel so much better. As an example, I started, there's only one person that I listen and watch on YouTube, and I just love her. I think she's the best. And she had spoken a long time ago about taking magnesium supplements. And I happen to have lupus. So I had no idea that taking magnesium can help fight inflammation. And in the time that I've been taking it, and this could be the placebo effect, or it could be my belief in that magnesium is going to help me because of the fact that someone that I trust, even though I don't know them, I only know them from their persona online, maybe just that sheer belief, that sheer willpower of belief, maybe that's what's helping to advance my progress. I'm not sure. But I use that as an example because it's really interesting. When we shift our identities, we will also find that our beliefs tend to shift as well. And remember, what you think about is what becomes a belief, is what becomes your perception, and that is what becomes your current reality. So, right into that, changing habits, just like I was saying. So, you will find yourself, especially once you've kind of established who you want to be, you'll be able to see the things that you're currently not doing that you do need to do in order to get to that place. Even if it's starting super small, no big deal, right? I always like to suggest that people start with getting enough water and exercising, just because it releases those endorphins and you feel so much better. Like I just a little bit earlier was on a stationary bike that I just got recently, and I'm super excited about it because I just really like stationary bikes. I really wanted a Peloton, but I was like, whatever, it's cool. So I did over, I think I did 15 or 16 miles, right? And it's just you feel so good. So getting that exercise in, right? Making that a habit, even if you don't go for super long, even if you start out at just 15, 20 minutes, and then over, each week kind of increase the time by 5 or 10 minutes. You can totally do that. Something that I've talked about in a previous video is breaking up your workouts so that way at the end of the day they do meet what you wanted to meet, but understanding that you don't necessarily have to do your workout all at once if that feels like it's too much. So yes, I've been in yoga and fitness and wellness and a lot of different types of coaching since I was about 19 years old. So I have a lot of experience, with this stuff. So changing habits and stuff, while it may not always be easy, it is something that you can create that is sustainable, but it has to come from you. It can't just come from somebody making a suggestion to do something, because that doesn't work for everybody. And I'm not sure what habits it is exactly that you need to change. But what I will say is incorporating just drinking more water and exercising will do a lot to change your mood. And changing your mood is always good, because then it's changing a temporary situation into a good temporary situation. You're feeling happy, you're feeling rejuvenated, and then you get to carry on with your day. And that's why I do the yoga videos. That's why I do, a lot of the stuff that I do, because I do believe that exercise is such a huge component to feeling your best, to being your best. So those are two habits that I suggest to change. Another one is definitely increasing your reading. Definitely reading Joe Dispenza. I've talked about him a whole bunch, but it still stands to be true. Breaking the habit of being yourself is one. You Are the Placebo is another. And on Audible, I have Becoming Supernatural, but I have a hard time learning auditorily. So I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting through that book, but I'm getting there. And I just love that everything is centered around meditation. Eventually, he talks about meditation in all of the books. And he gives you a step-by-step plan for meditation and for including meditation into your life, and why it's important to do so, and how it can help you break the habit of being yourself and help you realize that you are the placebo. So, the placebo effect, you can create it all on your own. You don't need anything else but yourself. Okay, the next thing is aiming for progress over perfection. For my perfectionists, I'm sure they're like, but I used to be a perfectionist. I do have a form of OCD. I've struggled with other things that have shown in my past that I tend towards perfectionism, and if it's not perfectionism, I quit, right? So that was a big hurdle for me for a very long time and was very difficult for me to overcome. However, I was able to, once I was more accepting of myself, and once I understood that the messaging about perfection was coming from other sources. It wasn't coming from me internally. There wasn't this expectation. It was an expectation that was placed upon me by other sources. And for you, that could be the media, that could be your family, that can be a whole plethora of things. But what I will say is that once you kind of learn to understand that not everything has to be perfect all the time, you can still get your message across and not be perfect. You can be at your most authentic, and that's when people will actually be listening and accepting of you and towards you, because they know that you're coming from a real place. You're not coming from a place of BS and, well, straight up just bullshit, right? And also that you're coming from a place of like, okay, here's my heart, like I want to help you, or I want to be supportive of you on your journey. People respond to authenticity so hard. And you have to, when you're being, authentically yourself, obviously there's parts of you that aren't perfect, and that's okay. It's like me and my body, right? When we're doing the yoga videos, I am sometimes cringing because I see how my stomach looks in certain positions, but obviously when I'm standing up, my stomach is flat. Well, I've had two children, And with my second pregnancy, I really went all out. I gained like 80 pounds. And so what that is it's not my stomach, it's just the skin, like folding over when I'm doing certain poses. And I'm always like, in my head about it. But I realized, I was like, that's a perfection thing. That's about you thinking that you have to be this perfect mold of a person that doesn't exist, that is not real, that you have no need to be, because you are yourself and you are enough. Okay. So the next thing is, and this would go also into changing habits or adding habits, like healthy habits. And I've talked about these before, is having a gratitude journal. So I myself have been lax on the gratitude journal and the journaling. I've been very consistent with affirmations, because affirmations have been so incredibly helpful for me. They've been helpful for manifestation. They've been helpful for um, honestly just giving me that pick me up when I need it. And it's so weird because sometimes it honestly feels like it knows what's going on in my life and what I need to hear. And I'll have a list of like 4 or 5 affirmations, and I'm like, oh my gosh. It's so on point. And, affirmations have really helped me, gotten me through a lot of stuff, have been a huge centerpiece of my inner work. So we'll start with the gratitude journal, right? So the gratitude journal obviously is incredibly important. It's good to get into a mindset and into a high vibrational emotion of gratitude. And you can do this by literally just getting a journal, writing down a list of what you're grateful for. If you don't want to write a whole big old list, okay, write a few things, write 5 things, But I guarantee you that over time, you're going to see that you're going to want to write down all the things that you're grateful for, down to like the littlest things, like the ability to move, the ability to see, the ability to hear. All of these things that are in my gratitude journal, right? So today, or way early this morning, I definitely spent some time with my gratitude journal, and I was like, okay, my list is differentiating, and that's awesome. And I'm so glad and happy that I can be grateful for these things, that I can show appreciation for these things, because it is important and it changes my mood. I'm in an elevated, high vibrational state. I'm good. So gratitude is incredibly important, and having a gratitude journal is even more important, because what you're doing is you're putting pen to paper. Our brains work best when we're writing. So when you're writing things down, you're actually really helping yourself out, because what you're doing is you're releasing things physically simply by writing them down, and you're bringing them into like your real world, right? Like instead of just from your head, now it's in the real world. It's on paper. It's a material. It's something, that you can touch and read and see. So it's incredibly important for you to go ahead and take that process on. So I have an affirmation journal, and people feel differently about affirmations. I love them because they really made a huge impact on my life. So I have an affirmation journal, and that journal is actually almost completely done. I have had that many affirmations. I use apps, I use Pinterest, I use a whole bunch of different things to get my affirmations, but I always want new ones, and I don't want ones that are like, recycled too much or the same exact thing. So one of the apps that I use, it lets you create a mix, and it's always coming up with like new topics and new things. So you have so much technology at your hands for affirmations. And I know, you can go into a mirror, you can speak these affirmations, but writing these affirmations down, and in fact, even writing them down in the 369 method. So I'm not even going to say at what point of the day, I'm going to just say whatever point of the day, right? So writing it down 3 times, writing it down 6 times, and writing it down 9 times, especially if it's something that you want to manifest, or if it's something that you're trying to do to put into your brain to replace any type of like negative thoughts or intrusive thoughts. I highly, highly suggest this. This helped me immensely. And the last thing is to have like a journal. So your gratitude journal can also serve as your journal. And, you know, writing a quick little thing about what you've done or what you're working on or what's making you happy, or, you know, trying to kind of find things that you want to share or that you need to get off of your chest, right? And then at the end of the day, if there's anything that you're super uncomfortable with, you can always rip out those pages and burn them. So no worries on that one. A journal is really good to have, again, for honestly some type of historical presence, but more so that way you can start to see your progress as you keep on journaling, even if it's not every single day. But as you keep on journaling, then you're going to start to have this account of what's been going on the last however long it's been. And you really get to start to see not only changes, but also maybe places where you're plateauing and where you need to kind of step it up. So it's super helpful, and again, a great way to get things off of your chest so you're not keeping things in your body, so you're not holding on to trauma or holding on to anything. Okay, so like I talked about earlier, exercise, super important. What type of exercise you want to do, completely up to you. And it completely depends on what your goals are. A great thing to help with the sleep-wake cycle is as soon as there's light outside, go outside for a 10-minute walk, right? And that's just to get you like, okay, this is me awake, I'm connecting to the sun, here we go, you know? And then it'll help you with your sleep because you'll start to get back into like the correct circadian rhythm. But I like to work out early because that's when I feel like there's less distractions. That's when I feel like I can focus more. That's when I feel like I need to, you know, I need to work out in the morning in order to have that energy last me throughout the rest of the day. So I have definitely taken time off from exercising at certain points due to, you know, various things. But I do consistently always come back to exercise, working out. And another reason why I have so many like yoga videos and things like that is to help me myself stay accountable. So if I wasn't trying to, you know, share a message, of course, everything would be private and it would just be like, okay, I'm just going to record myself working out because I feel like I need to in order to stay accountable. It could be something like that. Whatever you find that works for you, completely cool. But I just want to say, whatever it is that you're doing, keep on doing it and up it. Up it, make some changes, add in some things that maybe you previously didn't feel like you could accomplish or do. Well, is that what your future self is going to be like? I don't think so. So why not start trying to set up those building blocks today so you'll be able to do those things in the future and probably in the near future. Okay, limiting beliefs. So I'm always talking about limiting beliefs. My son says I drive him crazy with my talk about limiting beliefs, but pretty much when you really like stop and think about it, the majority of our beliefs really are limiting, right? Like we think we can't do something. Well, because we think we can't do something, we're not going to be presented with the opportunity. We're not going to have, you know, things occur. We're not going to have, you know, abundance, because we're coming from a scarcity mentality. We're coming from low self-worth, low self-esteem, and that comes from a lack of self-love, which is a huge problem in our society. Unfortunately, because of social media, we feel the need to be, liked and commented on and blah, 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 with everything. But life isn't about getting the accolades from others, right? Really, who you should be doing everything for is yourself. Are you proud of yourself? Can you give yourself accolades for what you've accomplished, for what you've done? If you can't, there is a lot of work that needs to go into this right now. So, an exercise that I've talked about before is, as cheesy as it sounds, going into a mirror, looking yourself directly in your eye, having some form of a smile on your face, because we all have different degrees of a smile, and telling yourself that you love yourself, and really trying to accept that information, really trying. Because you have to remember, the subconscious, even though it's 80% of our brain, and our conscious mind is only 20%, that 80%, that's a lot. That's a lot. So it's always recording what we're looking at, what we're hearing, what we're saying. It is like the time preserver. So it records data, collects everything. So oftentimes, if you find yourself, not sure of what's going on, maybe pay attention to the things that you're intaking. Maybe pay attention to what you're watching. Maybe pay attention to what you're listening to. I've definitely had to limit my podcasts. I've had to limit even certain music. It's just been something that I have found that has been so incredibly helpful for my journey and for myself. And I don't feel deprived. I don't feel like I'm giving up anything, because honestly, that stuff wasn't making me feel good. I just didn't realize it at the time. And then once I removed it, I was like, oh, okay. So sometimes just removing some things that I'm not even going to label them toxic, but maybe just things that aren't as nutritious for you, right? Like almost thinking about it like food is fuel, so is content. So is what you are absorbing, because your subconscious is recording all of it. Oh, but back to limiting beliefs. So limiting beliefs are obviously, things that are telling you that you can't do something, things that are telling you oh, I could never do this, or I could never do that, or I don't have the resources to do that. Maybe you don't have them right in the second, but maybe you can if you would stop with the limiting beliefs. That YouTuber that I was talking about, she had a really good question for this to ask, right? And that question was, why not me? And I was like, that is so genius. So, what she was talking about was opportunities and things that maybe in the past she felt like she was inferior of receiving, of accepting, and realizing, no, I'm looking at this wrong. Why not me? Why is it not me doing these things and having the type of life that I want? And so, upon further assessment, she figured it out, got that limiting belief out of her, and was able to move on. And she is incredibly successful, and I am so happy for her and her success. Okay. So, observing yourself now, who you are now, authentically, right now, right? And who you want to become. So, the reason that we're doing that is, yes, we've defined who you want to be, but who is this person, right? You've probably listed off attributes. You've probably listed off things that they do, maybe hobbies, ways they dress, ways, I mean, you could have gone into full on detail for all I know, like really specific, which is great, and I highly encourage it. But observing yourself right now as you are, and really kind of taking the time to understand, like, okay, what is it that I'm doing right now that is helping my success? What is it that I'm doing right now that is hindering my success? Or how am I preventing myself from, growing and changing into the person that I want to become? These are super good questions to ask yourself, and even better to journal. It's really interesting what answers you'll get out of it. And also, like, it's really good to be able to observe yourself, like, without judgment, but also from, I won't say from like the masculine energy, but I will say from a little bit more of an analytical, right? So analytical without judgment, with discernment, absolutely, but without judgment. We're just trying to see where you are right now, and then what it's going to take to get you to where you want to be. And understanding who that person is, and understanding who you are now, so you can fully grasp what all needs to be changed. It's actually a really good tool. All right, and finally, bridging the gap. So bridging the gap between the person that you are in this moment and the person it is that you want to become. So hopefully you've set up some form of a timeline or some form of a little bit of pressure, right? For you to meet your goal, for you to, become the person that you want to be. And bridging the gap is the information that we have from observing ourselves as we are right now and observing who we think we're going to be in the future. So as you continue on down your journey, you're going to continue to observe yourself. You're going to obviously, be aware of the changes that you've already made. You're obviously going to be aware of any setbacks that may have occurred. But just because there's a setback doesn't mean you have to beat yourself up and, do all this stuff. All it means is that there was a setback, and it happens with everyone. A journey is not just a straight line, right? Sometimes a journey is uphill, downhill, a little roller coaster ride. So becoming a better version of yourself, or just becoming happy, or whatever it is that your specific goal is, right? What would it take? What is the gap between you and the person that you want to be? And whatever that is, you'll usually be able to start to see it anyways once you're observing yourself, especially after you've already written out who it is that you want to be. But maybe you'll also gain clarity on who it is that you want to be in more specific terms, so you can have a higher chance of really like manifesting and bringing that to you faster. Because the more clear we are, the more set we are with our intentions, the faster things tend to come. So that was what today's video was about. I need to find, what did I do with it? Oh. Okay. I just needed to find my remote. Please remember to like, subscribe, and or follow. It was an honor sharing this information with you today, and I'm really looking forward to the next video. Be well, stay wild.